Hello there. What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about Agent Kallus and some different commanders and operatives that maybe he might work with his new Contingencies ability. If you guys are new here, be sure to subscribe and leave a comment. That'll enter you to win all of the giveaways that I run all the time. We're going to be doing a 12 Days of Life Day winner at the end of this video, so make sure you stay tuned for that. So I'm going to be talking about Agent Kallus today because, well, we haven't gotten any Legion news in a while, and while we do have 2 expansions coming out in January, we really haven't gotten a whole lot of articles lately, but we did get a little bit of a look at Lando and Kallus, and we didn't get that much of a detailed look on them, but we got a good hint of what they're going to do, specifically the Contingencies cards. Agent Kallus is going to have Contingencies too, and the real interesting thing about this, and I think this is really what makes him and Lando kind of stand out in their factions, is that they are the guys who are prepared for everything. And Kallus is going to have Contingencies too, which means you're going to be able to bring 2 extra cards in your command hand and kind of set them face down, and they are going to be options that you can potentially play when it's time to choose a command card. So where is this really going to help? Where are the bigger winners and losers here? This is going to be obviously probably not something that you really bring Kallus by himself. Like, I don't really see a whole lot of cases where he's your only commander, but it can work. And so I want to talk about that first, and then we'll start talking about different characters that he might work with. Because if he's a solo commander, then he is going to have his own command cards. We haven't seen many. We've only really seen one. And if you guys have been paying attention, I've kind of been using my my own little cigar Kallus. Where I figure he's got a little bit of Wolverine inspiration on him here. But the card is not called Face Me, Bub, but it is called Face Me, and it's a decent card. It's definitely designed to kind of help stop some of those rampaging Force users like the Grievuses and the Anakin Skywalkers and the Darth Mauls and a lot of that stuff. However, a Force push will still be able to kind of get him away, but for those people that are out there causing lots of chaos, he's going to be able to kind of force you into melee, and I think this will work really, really well against characters like Zeb, who may want to get into melee combat but don't have the Force. Now, Zeb is not in game yet, but I'm sure we'll get him at some point. But this is just a great art piece and a great card. And it's not something that you want to use in every game, so this might be something that you kind of set off to the side underneath. And like, oh, this is going to be a primarily a ranged battle. We don't really need to lock people up into melee this game. Okay, good. Well, I don't need to actually pull that one into play. So that's something that kind of, and I'm guessing the rest of his cards will kind of fit into this kind of, we want to be prepared for everything. But even if he's a solo commander, some of the newer command cards that they were part of the Imperial Specialists, for example, Covert Observation. This one got changed recently, and now there's like a new way to potentially consider running this one, because it's one of those that, hey, you know what? I'm not always running an operative or special forces, but if I do run special forces, I may want to use this one. It's a 1-pip, and it's going to put out a little extra suppression. There could be a critical turn where this is really important. There could be a critical turn like where it's not. Like, maybe this isn't a card you'd want to put in every deck, and now you have the options like, hey, I want to potentially swap out that 1-pip for just that extra suppression for just the right time. Especially when they're going to try and maybe I think somebody's at risk of panicking off the board, but they're 1 suppression shy. Boom! I'll pull this card in, or Coordinated Fire. I think, while this is a good card, some builds, this is more of a situational card. Builds that don't have a whole lot of core. I run a lot of Imperial builds that have a lot of special forces. We've gotten so many special forces now units for the Empire, and the faction has grown such that I don't usually fill up on Stormtroopers, and a lot of my builds only run like 3 or 4 core units. And so there have been times where I run this card, and by the time I get around to really being able to play this card and make it work very well, I might be down to only 2 core units remaining. Or maybe I might not have any that have the ability to shoot this particular turn. So more and more often, at least in my builds lately, I feel like this is a card that ends up being a little more situational. And so it'd be nice. I think Contingencies is going to be able to make a card like this, can sit off in the side. I'm like, you know what? If I need it, I can pull it, but I don't. But I'm not locked into having to use it if I want to bring it. And I think that's a pretty cool thing. But I think Kallus is really going to shine if he's partnering with somebody else. So I'm kind of ordering these from maybe least likely to, or least, smallest impact to biggest impact. So I'm going to start off with Boba Fett. I look, if you guys have been following The Mandalorian, I think we'll probably see more from Boba Fett in the not too distant future. Although I'm not sure exactly how that'll be. So maybe we'll get different versions of Boba. But the Boba we have right now isn't all that great. So I don't know if you really want to pair Kallus with Boba Fett. But you know what? It's a nice opportunity to have a whipcord launcher standing by because it's not one of those cards you need all the time. But when the right time for it to work is there, then it can be great. Granted, Boba has to be alive to be able to use that, but that's pretty cool. But overall, I'm still not a huge fan of Boba Fett currently, but that's okay. That's okay. Bosk maybe a little bit better if you're pairing him with a bounty hunter, because hey, look, we always want to bring merciless munitions in, but then of course, depending on what build we're running and how we want to configure our 1-pips. Sometimes this is one of those cards that it forces you to make tough choices and eliminate another 1-pip. And this might be more of a big deal if you're bringing Kallus and Bosk and somebody else. You might not always need to run merciless munitions with Bosk because maybe he ends up being able to just be a safe sniper. And maybe you get to keep this one off to the side and not in your main command hand. And just in case they do start charging Bosk and now it's time to run that Dioxis charge, boom, now I can pull it in. Or maybe I get paired up against droids and the Dioxis charge ends up not being that big of a deal against them. Maybe I can now leave it in the contingencies. Palpatine is, if we're going, kind of making the jump from operatives to commanders now, Palpatine's probably one of those that I don't really see myself pairing Kallus with because Palpatine's got good command cards, and I think all three of them are good. And it's usually if you're running Palpatine, a lot of times you run all three of Palpatine's cards, but maybe not all the time, right? Maybe, and of course, a lot of this does depend on what Kallus's cards end up looking like, and kind of depending on your build. But I think if one could go, and maybe an entire Legion goes, you just really need to bring Palps 1 and 2 pip into play. And since he's contingencies too, maybe you set Palps 1 and 2 pip off to the side because a lot of people like to gun for Palpatine. And let's just say you're unlucky and you lose Palp and they think, I've got you now. No problem. His cards were safely off to the side, and then we left in an entire Legion. Just because there's so many workarounds where an entire Legion doesn't really become necessary. I think this is the only one that I could leave out, bringing just the 1 and the 2 pip for Palp. Putting those off to the side with contingencies, that's a possibility. Although, if you do that, you also run the risk of if you lose Kallus, then you lose access to Palps 1 and 2 pips. So it definitely becomes a little bit of a mind game with your opponent. Who are they really going to gun for? And of course, if you've done that, you just got to keep Kallus really safe. Maybe he just hides, and maybe Palp kind of exposes himself a little bit more. Sounds dirty. It's family-friendly channel, by the way. But General Veers is another one that he's always been he's always been good, but he hasn't always been like super ultra amazing. But he's got one command card I think that's a really nice one to be able to bring in, but that also happens to be situational. So if you happen to pair Kallus with Veers, Imperial Discipline, great card, but again, it's a little more situational. It's really nice when you need it, right? Letting somebody recover when they are issued an order is clutch. It's clutch in so many ways because not only are you able to take some of those units that need to get shields back or have exhaustible upgrade cards that you need to be ready like in a hurry, this also can get rid of all of that suppression that gets stacked on you before the unit even has to activate because it's when they're issued an order. And so you're issuing that order, they get to recover right away. and get rid of all of that suppression. This, if whenever you had that unit that was definitely going to panic, boom, you can pull this one in and do that. So like, I really like this. This is a great one to have, kind of, have that ace up your sleeve with this one. I think this is a really nice card to be able to have on standby. If we move to the pair with Director Krennic, which I think could be a very, very nice one, because Krennic is, his main thing, well, one of his main things is Compel. Compel is a really nice thing, or rather, Cunning is actually what I wanted to talk about. Compel is nice, but, wrong C word. The C word I was looking for is Cunning. But Cunning is really nice because Krennic wants to play his command cards. So usually when you're running Krennic, you've got to run all of his command cards because you're going to win those ties. And so so doing that, can be pretty interesting. But like, especially for a card like his 3-pip, if you're playing Annihilation Looms, and all of us are, maybe you are not going to need that. Maybe you don't want to have it kind of in your main hand. Maybe you want that one to wait until turn 5 or 6, but you don't know if Krennic is going to make it to turn 5 or 6. This is one of those times where maybe you set that off to the side, especially if you're afraid that you're going to lose him beforehand. Then you didn't have to wait for you're not suffering too much by waiting too long. I think this, and of course, I'm talking about like the one-on-one matchups, but there's always that chance where you're going to combine Kallus with more than one other hero. So you might see, like a Veers and Krennic or something with Kallus, or well, maybe not those specifically. You'd have to put at least one, maybe a Bosk and Krennic, or something like that with Kallus. That could certainly work, right? Iden Versio, speaking of commanders that can double as operatives, this is where I think we start to get a lot of flexibility in our lists, and I think this is a really fantastic pairing for Kallus, primarily because both of them kind of fit the description of being very versatile. Kallus with his contingencies, and then Iden Versio with her loadout. She seems to be like more of a natural pairing for Kallus, in my eyes, also because of the fact that she can now change from commander over to operative, and now you've got one of each, but she still has a wealth of command cards. She can kind of change her loadout depending on who you're facing, and also she's got 2 different 2-pips, and so between the both of them, you're going to have 3 2-pips. You're going to have whatever Kallus's 2-pip is, plus Iden Versio's. And granted, while you might not always run Concussive Blast, you certainly may, especially if you have to deploy in that sniper config. And Incapacitate. This is like one of those ultimate cards that really represents that situational play. And when you are able to make this play, it's absolutely A+ play. But there's so many reasons you may not really be able to use this. For one, you may not have somebody, you may not have a core that's got a face up that, that gets to go. And in the chance that does happen, they may have played a 1-pip, and you may not even be able to really, guarantee that you're going to make this work. But the other thing is, her droid might be dead by the time you get ready to activate something like this. So being able to have a card like this in reserve for just in case you need it is crucial. I think I think Kallus is basically the best thing that ever happened to this card, because now you can bring this card without the fear of it taking up a really delicate 2 slot, and I think that's huge. I think that's really, really huge. And Darth Vader. I think Darth Vader is maybe the only other option that I think is really like A+. Like Iden Versio and I think Darth Vader are probably my top 2 picks to pair with Kallus. And fortunately, you actually could do them both. Although I don't think at this point you'd really want to do them both, because of Darth Vader, you can, if we're talking command cards, you get to run either Commander Vader or Operative Vader, and either one of them can use all of the available command cards. So, and this is a tough one, because since we've got 2 versions of Vader, you've got lots and lots of command cards, and this has always been like when I've run Vader, I always have such a hard time, especially if you want to run Operative Vader, because you still have to have a commander, and And so, like, to really run like that perfect operative Vader build, there's so many times I want to run every single Vader command card, and that means I'm not running anything else. And so it's so tricky, and it becomes so difficult to really find that perfect balance of, like, what if I do lose Vader? Have I just lost all of my command card ability? You know, and so, like, having Kallus is going to really help that, especially like for like 1-pips. And 1-pips is, you know, always. The 1-pip is always like that most impactful card, right? And, you know, the classic Vaders, I love Implacable. I don't think I could ever not take Implacable with Darth Vader. It's just, in my opinion, it's just like one of the best cards in the game. It's incredible. Of course, it costs us a wound, but it has the potential to be just absolutely incredible. But then again, Vader's might. When it does work, it's absolutely incredible, but it's a lot more situational, right? Like, I really love this card, but it's a lot more situational. So like out of the, when I'm looking at 1-pips, maybe I also want Kallus's 1-pip in here, you know, or if I'm doing a, you know, a 3-way and I've got Iden Versio's in there as well, maybe I want her 1-pip because her 1-pip's awfully good too. Here's one that could go in the sidebar and in the contingencies, and then when the time comes, now I've got the perfect opportunity to actually use this, and you know, but I'm not, you know, losing another 1-pip that I'm more likely to be able to play in order to bring this, you know, and then I maybe never get to use it. Like, there's so many times I've, you know, brought this card into the game and it ends up not really being able to do anything because I just don't have that golden opportunity to really make Vader do this. So I love that. I love what Kallus brings to being able to run Vader, and Iden Versio are probably my top 2 to really pair with him. But he seems like he's going to be a lot of fun. Did I miss any cards or really any important interactions with contingencies that you guys maybe thought would be a really good one to have in your contingencies? Let me know what your favorite 2 cards are going to be to put into your contingencies with Agent Kallus down in the description below. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Also, thank you for everybody who has subscribed and left comments and entered for the 12 Days of Life Day. Today's winner is going to win an ARC Troopers expansion, and that winner is going to be JSM Dubs. Congratulations to JSM Dubs. Thank you for being a subscriber and leaving a comment. Just go ahead and shoot me an email on the back end of my channel. I'll get your address and details, and we'll get you squared away. This was actually the final of the 12 Days of Life Day, but there will be more giveaways in January. Also, anything that does not get claimed, you guys are all going to have 30 days to claim those. Anything that doesn't get claimed will roll over into Patreon giveaways, so patrons get additional chances to win stuff as well. And that's about it, guys. Be sure to check out some of the links in the description below. You can find links to Discord, and you can find links to my website, where if you're looking for any kind of product reviews or anything like that, I've got all of that stuff there. My AI system for Legion is there as well. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Big thanks to my patrons as well. You guys are absolutely amazing, and I could not do this without you. If you're interested in supporting the channel on Patreon, there are links for that as well. I want to thank you guys so much, and as always, have a great day.